Hello everyone, I am Bruffy1322 and this video is going to show the fastest fully upgraded vehicles from the PS5 and Xbox Series X expanded and enhanced versions of GTA Online in terms of lap time. As always, the precision counter is in the top left with the best lap time the vehicle achieved in the top right, and since there are cars from a number of classes here, the positions within their own classes are also listed in the top left. This video lists all vehicles added on day 1 of the new versions of the game, for any drip feed cars added after that, other classes of cars because I've tested them all, and all the information you need about this series. Check the playlist linked in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get testing results of any new cars a little bit early. So first of all, the Arbiter GT is hateful. It's got the same horrible mechanic as the Vamos with the tow values for the front wheels, where hitting any small bump or curb in the road will send the car flying in wildly different directions completely randomly. It's absolutely horrible to drive and should be avoided, and it's even worse in HSW form, and it's nowhere near on the pace of the Buffalo STX anyway. It's still not as bad as the Vamos, but it's pretty bad. There are ways to make these old muscle cars more floaty and less grippy without making them complete death traps to drive, Rockstar. Please, just stop with this. The Sentinel XS could have done with a little bit more power given its grip levels aren't too bad, but on tracks with longer straights, it'll probably be able to pose a threat to the Previon at the top of the Coupes class. Even if its traction isn't quite on the same level, it's at least another option to use at the top of the class. Now, the S95 is kind of your bog standard sports car. 105.699 lap time is actually exactly the same as the Carbon Isère, so not too bad for the S95 in its non-HSW form. It would just be another sports car, but we've obviously got HSW form to come later on as well. And you'll find that with this video we're not seeing what we saw with the top speed testing video where we've got cars demolishing the classes. We'll talk about that later on. The Astron Custom HSW is actually able to get up towards the Toros for SUV class races. It's only 0.4 of a second behind in terms of lap time, but even if it doesn't beat it, it is much nicer and more manageable to drive, so it's probably always going to be the better option. The Toros is pretty horrible to drive, and the Astron Custom has a higher top speed for those tracks that have that as well, so great option for the SUV class, the Astron Custom, certainly for the top. Now, the Banshee in 8th place here, the HSW Banshee, we've taken a massive jump in lap time from a 1:05 from the Astron Custom to a 1 minute with the Banshee. It's an incredibly fun car to drive, it always has been, but with the massive engine upgrade and crazy straight line speed as we saw from the top speed testing video, it's just it's a great car to drive. It's shot right to one of the top few cars in my list, so the lap time that the Banshee got there puts it on the same pace as the Neo, Pariah and Italia RSX, which is kind of crazy at the top of the sports class. The Turismo Classic with that 1 minute 0.6, it's an incredible lap time. Keep in mind these 1 minute lap times are on the pace of, supercars, which is evidenced by the Cyclone 2, which is a pretty good supercar just within its non-HSW form. 1 minute 0.260, we've got sports cars and sports classics getting those kind of lap times now. And yeah, the Turismo Classic is the first car that we've seen that's topped its class, but the Turismo Classic was already at the top of the Sports Classics class, so no change there really. It's just a lot quicker now and even more dominant. Now, in 5th place, the top 5, we've got the S95, and it was so close to beating the Italia GTO, it's remarkable honestly. A 59.9 second lap time. There's only one sports car that's ever dipped into the 59 second lap time, and that was the Italia GTO. The HSW S95 just lacks a little bit of grip in terms of the Italia GTO in comparison to that, but obviously it's got that crazy top speed that we saw in the top speed testing video, and that allows it to sort of pull back on the back straight. We'll see a comparison towards the end of the video, and it's right on that top pace. You can definitely use this to compete against the Italia GTO, and certain tracks it will be quicker, certain other tracks the Italia will be quicker. The top of the sports class is getting a little bit more interesting, I'd say. The weaponized Ignis, without the HSW mods, it still absolutely flies. It was already quick, the regular Ignis, and amazingly the weaponized version is even quicker it seems. It's just really nice to handle around the corners, and I don't know why this wasn't just the regular Ignis. Why did we have to have a version with a stupid gun on the back? And it's actually only just behind the Emirates and the Krieger in its non-HSW form to get 5th place in the supercars class, which is kind of amazing. I just wanted to go back as well to the Cyclone 2, because the Cyclone 2 is basically the Cyclone on steroids. It just lacks a little bit of top speed and grip to give it a serious, top lap time like we're seeing from the Ignis here, in the exact same way that the original Cyclone did back in the day. But as we come on to the HSW version of the Cyclone 2, which is in third place, we see a lap time of 55.8 seconds. That is incredible. If the Cyclone 2 is the Cyclone on steroids, the HSW version of the Cyclone 2 is what happens when the Cyclone decides that it hasn't had enough steroids and takes the supply for the entire year in a single day. On its own, the Cyclone 2 probably took the crown for the best accelerating car in the game outside of rocket-powered vehicles, but the HSW upgrade puts the acceleration of the Cyclone 2 on the level of those rocket-powered vehicles. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just lacks a little bit in traction and the top speed to ultimately beat what is our number one supercar now, the weaponized Ignis HSW form, which you might have been able to tell from the way that it worked without the HSW upgrades. It's only 0.3 of a second quicker, the weaponized Ignis, but on most tracks it is going to be the one to choose. It is going to be quicker because it can be used in races despite having this gun on it. We still can't use the Ardent, by the way. But these lap times are absolutely ridiculous. 55 seconds, it can't be understated. There's only one car has ever gone quicker than the lap times that we're seeing from the weaponized Ignis and the Cyclone. It's absolutely insane. Both of them are very close, but on most circuits, the weaponized Ignis with a higher top speed, better grip, it's just a more balanced car. That's going to be the one to choose. But not since the Emirates and Krieger released have we seen a bike top the lap time sheets if you negate the oppressors, and now that's been rectified. 53.1 seconds. The new HSW upgrade of the Hakucho Drag is insane. The Hakucho Drag was already one of the quickest bikes on the level of the Shitaro, right at the top of the motorcycles class. The HSW version just makes it ridiculous. That is a quicker lap time than the Oppressor Mark II, which got about a 53.3 I think, and it's the second quickest land vehicle to have ever set a lap around this track, second only to the original Oppressor that got a 51.9. And remember, unlike all other bikes, you don't need to wheelie with this. Leaning forward is the way to go the quickest with this bike, and they really chose the best bike to add these mods to because of that. This is utterly dominant in motorcycle races and HSW races as well. It's absolutely crazy. 53 seconds is a ridiculous lap time. Now, I wanted to do a comparison between the top two and supers, but like I said, since these lap times, 55.5 and 55.8, are the two of the three quickest lap times we've ever seen from cars around this track, I figured I would include the number one quickest lap time as well with the BR8 as an extra addition there. So what you're seeing on screen now is a comparison between the three quickest cars in the entire game for lap time. And it's really interesting how they build up their speed. The BR8 and the Ignis kind of pull away in the early part of the lap where it's more grippy and the Cyclone 2 can't really keep up. Then the Cyclone 2 pulls it back in the acceleration zones. But towards the end of the lap, the BR8 really does just, put down that dominance of you can't really compete with the cornering grip of the BR8. But keep in mind that the Divest 8 is going to be getting the HSW treatment as well. We've already kind of seen that in the game files in previous versions, so that will probably be the other end of the spectrum. We've got the Cyclone 2 HSW with the crazy acceleration but not an awful lot of grip. We've got the Ignis, which is more balanced. It has the grip, but it's got the better top speed but not quite as good as acceleration with the Cyclone. And then we're going to have the Divest 8 HSW, which will probably have the better top speed of the three. Not an awful lot of grip, but really, really good straight line speed in comparison to the Cyclone and the Ignis. So keep that in mind. Don't just go out and spend $3.5 million on the weaponized Ignis because it's the new quickest supercar. Wait until we get the Divest 8 and then we'll see where it lands. But to be honest, I think the weaponized Ignis is still going to be at the top, just because it's more balanced than the other two. But it's still, these are some crazy lap times, and the same is true for the fact that the S95 in its HSW form is on the pace of the Itali GTO. The Banshee is in that top group as well for the sports class. It's basically giving more options. Most of these HSW cars aren't topping their classes, they're just giving more options towards the top of the class. the Astron Custom at the top with the Toros, the Sentinel XS is competitive with the Previon, the Banshee and the S95 are competitive with the top sports. The only outliers really are the cars that were already at the top of their classes, like the Turismo Classic. It was already the number one sports classic car. It didn't need an HSW upgrade to make it 4 seconds a lap quicker, so it's even more dominant now. And obviously that's the main difference that we've seen from this video in comparison to the top speed testing video, where all the HSW cars were basically at the top and quicker than anything that we'd seen before. And as I said in that video, top speed isn't all that important when it comes to lap time. It's not the most important thing by far. It's traction. Ultimately for lap time you are limited by the amount of traction you have, and traction doesn't increase with HSW upgrades. Yes, there's some HSW spoilers, but they don't give any more traction than a regular spoiler does. So with only straight line speed improving, that's a good thing for racing, because it makes these cars require more skill to drive effectively, with longer braking distances and more thought required on throttle application. But it doesn't help a car that simply doesn't have the grip in the first place become dominant, unlike for the top speed testing video. You spend a lot more time in racing going around corners than being at top speed, and if one car can only take corners 20 miles per hour slower than another, it doesn't matter what top speed the car with the worst grip has, it's probably going to get a worse lap time. And ultimately, when you're talking about lap time, you need a balance. That's why the Ignis is at the top in terms of cars, because it has decent grip with the downforce that it has as well. It's got a decent top speed, even though its top speed isn't on the level of some of those sports cars that we saw from the top speed testing video. It's got enough to make it work. It's got some good acceleration. Again, even though it's not on the level of the Cyclone 2, it's a better all-round package. And that is what you need for lap time. So in a way, it's a good thing that we've got these cars that aren't demolishing their classes. It's good that we're getting more options in most of these classes. It's just also a shame that the Turismo Classic is the one that got the HSW mods for the Sports Classics class and made it even worse. We could have had a car that was 4 or 5 seconds off the pace of the Turismo Classic, get some HSW mods, and then bring it up to the top, like we've seen with the sports cars, the S95 and the Banshee. Those HSW mods put them towards the top, but the top in terms of lap time remains the same with the Italy GTO and the Pariah. They're all still competitive, we've just got more cars available. But ultimately, those are the results. The weaponized Ignis is, the weaponized Ignis and the Cyclone are completely dominant in supercars. They've upped the game completely, and they are the 2 of the 3 fastest cars to set a lap time around this track. The Cucho Drag is the 2nd fastest land vehicle to ever set a lap time around this track, and most of the other cars make themselves competitive within their classes. That's pretty much the story. But remember also that this is going to be the final episode of this series, this best fully upgraded car series. This is kind of more of a bonus after the huge countdown that we've just done recently, covering all 522 cars that I've tested in the game. If you haven't seen that, check out the playlist. It'll be down in there, and it's basically 100 vehicles in every video, and we go through every single one, all tested for lap time. But the same is true for the top speed testing series. These videos on these HSW cars are going to be the last in those series, and I'm going to be starting a new series that focuses on the cars, maybe in a slightly different way, but gives you the lap times and top speeds going forward, with retesting for the new gen versions of the game and all that kind of stuff baked in. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, but updates will be in the weekly update videos every Thursday. So I put up a video every Thursday with all the discounts and things like that. And if there's any new vehicles, like for example the Divest 8 getting the HSW upgrades, I'll do the testing, and the lap time and the top speed will be included in those weekly update videos. So again, keep an eye out, make sure you subscribed and all that good stuff, and check out the playlist in the description for all the cars that are in the game that have been tested. But yeah, until the new series arrives, this is a goodbye for these specific testing videos, but it's not a goodbye to testing on the channel. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below about all of these cars and these crazy lap times that we've seen. Like I said, that's pretty much it for this one. Consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want testing results early. And remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed or found it helpful, and subscribe for more. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.